Do you want to
Yes.
hit some more? Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go rapid fire, baby,
Let's do
because
it.
I'm kind of pumped about this rapid fire this week.
All right. All right.
And I hope I didn't just get stuck on one question the whole time, but
I know. There's at least one that we're going to get stuck on, though, I think. Double fill in the blank on this first one. You felt blank about Marcus Freeman as a head coach a month ago, and you feel blank about him as a head coach today.
I felt somewhat uneasy about Marcus Freeman as a head coach a month ago. And I feel solid as the Rock of Gibraltar about him as a head coach today.
Okay. Solid as the Rocket. Is that what you're going to leave it at? You're not going to expand upon that at all?
Sure, I'll explain it. So yes, did I expect some valleys, obviously, this season with him being a first-year head coach? Of course. But I figured those valleys would come in wins against Stanford and Marshall. Like I didn't feel like the valleys would be deep enough that we would be discussing losses, right? I thought we would be discussing wins, and then here's the things that they can work on, et cetera, right? I feel really good about it right now because he has changed a lot of the things that he was doing in the first place. He is really, really good at self-reflection. He's really, really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw bits and pieces of it when he was the defensive coordinator after the Florida State game, et cetera. And a lot more of that stuff happened behind the scenes than we're aware of as a general public because he was the defensive coordinator, not the head coach, right? But we have seen him grow into this head coaching role by leaps and bounds over 9 games. I mean, leaps and bounds. And I would say, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but he has grown so much in 9 games. You don't see that from first-time head coaches, maybe over 2 or 3 years. And I feel like he's changed in 9 games. And so that makes me very excited about the present and the future of Marcus Freeman leading this program, because I think he will continue to be self-reflective and change in a way that is not knee-jerk, but in a way that is going to help the program and move it forward and all of those things. So I'm very confident right now.
If it needs addressing, he'll address it. And to his credit, as you said, just like it's been such a steep, growth line, I guess, for, because like I felt very unsure about his future as a head coach after that Stanford game. That's when a month ago was. It's like, it's one thing to be a people person and a great recruiter and all that stuff. But seeing that loss to that Stanford team that had lost 11 straight games to Power 5 teams, and the game plan they had for that game, and just what seemed like a lack of focus and a lack of discipline, and and basically like the outward appearance of a lack of proper preparation. It's like all those things, just all these red flags and alarm bells going off after that. That was the first time I really questioned whether or not he was a head coach, I think, because again, growing pains and all that, you can live with some stuff, but then they looked a little bit better against UNLV. They won a lopsided game. Could have been more lopsided, if a few things were cleaned up, So again, it's like things to clean up, all that stuff. Then you go to Syracuse, though, and you see a team that looked much more sharp already, and beat another good football team. And then, of course, we get last week. And, so as of today, I'm just much more confident in him as a head coach because, as you were alluding to, we really seem to see him taking strides and growing as a head coach from week to week. And you're absolutely right. It's like most young coaches like this, it's like it would take like a year or 2 years. And then all of a sudden you start to see some of these things evaporate. But now we've seen it in a matter of weeks, drastic improvement in a matter of weeks. So I feel much more confident now. Now, all that said, though, I'm much more confident and encouraged about his future here. But this is really an important week. And I think Brian has said this week as well, because, again, the split that we have now in the season is 4-1 against ranked teams, 2-2 against unranked. This is the, going back to UNLV and Stanford back to back. This is the first unranked team you've played now. Are you only going to get up for the good teams? Or are you going to go out? Or are you going to play, a full 60 minutes against an unranked team as well, and leave no doubt who the better team is at the end of the day? So that's that's still, a little bit of a
Absolutely.
question. We're kind of riding that, we're riding the Clemson high for sure right now, but I
Yeah.
sure feel better. And I want to still be able to feel that way after Navy Saturday.
Absolutely. That is still a major question mark for me, and I feel like even if they don't perform where I need them to be, I think they'll get to that point. Like, I have faith that Marcus Freeman will get them there, right? If they're not there right now, but it's still a major question mark for where they're at as a program.
Yeah. And that's kind of, like I said, I was saving this. Jeff Brown was saying, are you confident? How confident are we that after the Clemson win, Notre Dame is truly on the right track and we're not going to see any issues with Navy and Boston College that we saw earlier with Marshall and Stanford? And that plays into this next question as well. Which has the better chance to happen? Notre Dame loses to either Navy or Boston College, or they beat USC. I know what your answer is going to be, but go ahead.
This one's tough, though. I mean, I will say that this one is tough because I don't. The better chance to happen is that they beat USC. I think, if I'm reading the question correctly, right? Isn't that how? But I mean, I don't. They're not going to lose. They're not going to lose to Navy or Boston College, so I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the more likely thing is
how confident are you in that statement, though? Are you making that statement solely because they just beat the number 4 team in the country?
Oh, that's definitely part of it.
Without, while disregarding the losses to Marshall and, again, it goes to how confident are we that crap is really behind them,
right?
Or do they play down to the level of their competition?
I am confident that they are going to win those games and beat you. I'm confident they're going to win out, right? Would it surprise me if they lost to either one? Yeah, not as much as you might think. That's part of the problem.
He says both are very plausible.
Yes, I know. And so I think they beat all 3. I'm more confident now than I was obviously before the Clemson game. But I keep reminding myself, man, dude, they lost to Marshall and Stanford. You can't forget that. And that is a reality. That is the reality that we are both living in right now. So it's very difficult for me. But my confidence level is still high that they would beat all 3 of those teams. Like, I would put my hard-earned money down to say that they go 3-0 to finish the season. Not a lot of it, but some of it.
I don't know that I'm willing still to put hard-earned money on anything regarding
like
the Notre Dame wager this season.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not talking about
your hard-earned $5
paycheck. Right. I'm not talking about that. That's how I bet, Sean. I bet $5, $10 at a time.
It's like 2 Reese's peanut butter cups in today's economy. So
I know, right? Seriously.
I am mostly confident that the win over USC, like that, basically that they'll beat. I'm more confident that they will beat USC than I have any, doubts about Navy and or Boston College, I guess, to answer my own question.
Yeah.
I think they should be able to take, I just keep looking at, if you can run that game plan last week against Clemson, you should be able to do that against anybody.
Yes.
But like, here's my question too, because, like, I know you guys, especially over the weekend on the shows, talked about how Tommy Rees went against, his tendencies.
Right.
So they basically completely caught Clemson off guard. Yeah. So now that that's on film, are these next 2 teams going to be more prepared for whatever they threw at them?
They can try to be more prepared, but I don't think it's going to matter.
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter against
all 3 defenses. Shouldn't matter, specifically Southern Cal. Like, their defense is a sieve. I mean,
a soft sieve.
Woof. I mean, it's just not good. Now,
there's such thing as a soft sieve.
You can be nervous about what the USC offense is, and that's totally legit. But after seeing the way that Benjamin Morrison played and like this defense played against Clemson, I feel more confident about that matchup. But I always thought that Notre Dame, even with the offensive struggles, scoring points that they've had, I've always thought that they could score against USC. Their defense is that bad to me. So
I came home last week and I was watching a little bit before I fell asleep. I was watching USC play Cal, and freaking Cal was scoring left and right.
I mean, their quarterback had over 400 yards passing, and they scored 35 points. Cal, okay? Yeah. So If they can do that, and I realize the transitive property is not always appropriate in college football, but if they can do that, there's no reason that Notre Dame shouldn't be able to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Drew Pine's going to throw for over 400. Okay. But there's no reason they shouldn't be successful. I would go as far as to be cocky and say, here's our defensive playbook. Here's our offensive playbook. Stop us. And I don't think they could do it.
I had to write down a future rapid fire question when you said something there. So
well played, sir. You're always thinking.
Always have to. Yeah. When they come to my mind, I can't let them get away. So, steel trap, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Next question. Do you buy or sell that Notre Dame and Clemson should play more often?
I buy it. And here's my reasoning why. Number one, Clemson's a really, really good program. And I think they have, and regardless of what people think about Dabo Swinney, I am a fan of Dabo Swinney. I think he runs a good program. And they might be going this way.
Yeah.
They're still going to be an upper echelon team in the ACC. And they're still going to be competitive, and they can still beat you at any time. So I would replace, Stanford in a heartbeat with Clemson. In a heartbeat with Clemson. I would love for that to just a flat out A for B, boom, replacement. I think that would be fun to have.
Vince's disdain for playing Stanford is is noted on this show. It is a high level. That's right. That they've been doing this ACC scheduling agreement since 2014, which makes this the 9th season that of Notre Dame playing this ACC arrangement. They've only played 5 times in those 9 years. And remember, one of them was the ACC championship game, which, is a one-off thing. It's never going to happen again. And the other was the college football playoff. So in 9 seasons, they've only played 3 times in the regular season. And so I think you can at least move that to every other year, so that you've got 4 years of eligibility. Obviously you can play 5, up to 5, but typical 4 years of eligibility. So like if a kid is in school 4 years, you're going to get to host Clemson once. You're going to get to go to Clemson once. They've only been to Clemson once in the 9 years, which is amazing. And that's been 7 years. Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that'd be great. Even if they did a home and away, back to back, took 2 years off,
right?
Then they go back.
Whatever.
You know what I mean? That's the same amount of time.
I just think that if Notre Dame and the ACC are going to keep this arrangement, it makes sense for the best team in the ACC to be playing a team like Notre Dame, who you've got this arrangement with more often. It's good for everybody. Like when you start talking college football playoff and just general excitement, look at the attention that game got the other night. Like if LSU Alabama wouldn't have been going on the other night,
right?
Notre Dame Clemson would have gotten even more attention Saturday night.
One, it would have helped if Notre Dame hadn't lost to Marshall and
no, that's true too. That's true too.
But your point is well taken. I mean, that they should be playing Clemson more often as opposed to playing North Carolina like every year. It seems like they play Pitt all the time. There's teams in the ACC that it just feels like Notre Dame plays all the time, and the balance is not there. The balance is not there.
Yeah, I agree. John says Notre Dame should play Michigan every year, and I think it's like what is it? Is it an 8 or a 9 team schedule that they play? I can't even remember like the ACC off the top. I mean, yeah, it's 8 teams. They play an 8-game schedule. So it's like I don't know. I'm just saying it just makes it would make sense, I think, for everybody if Notre Dame and Clemson were playing more often, because Notre Dame needs more of these, premier type games, basically. So
well, and I do want to pick this one up because picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue. That's the name of the person. So just want to put that out there.
That's from Airplane. That's an Airplane reference.
Yeah,
I think is that Lloyd Bridges there in that.
Might be
that picture. I don't think that was Lloyd Bridges.
But the comment says, wouldn't it be unfair to Clemson to have to play Notre Dame that often? ACC wants a team in the playoff hunt, and Notre Dame would keep them out. Well,
I mean, you're
Clemson doesn't
assuming
play
Notre
very
Dame's going to win all the time,
right.
but
That's the other thing. And then the other part of it to me is, would Clemson want the strength of schedule, or do
yeah,
they just
it
want to
boosts
go
their
undefeated?
resume. They need somebody better to play. If North
Right.
Carolina's the next best team on your schedule this year,
Right.
they need another big opponent. You're right to boost their strength of schedule.
I would think
Absolutely.
Clemson would be all for it, if I'm being honest. I think they'd be fine with it. I don't think they want to play a bunch of turds all the time. I mean, no good team wants that. How about that? No
Yeah.
good team wants that.
Concur.
And Michael has the classic response to not playing Stanford anymore. Stanford and USC games are for recruiting on the West Coast. Notre Dame isn't pulling people from Northern California.
Right.
Okay?
That's what the Stanford part of it, like
Makes no sense.
USC, I get because it's Los Angeles, it's Southern
Yes.
California. That's where the biggest recruits come from. Northern California, just like being on the West Coast for that, I just
It's 2022.
I
You
don't
can
think it does
travel
that
wherever
much
you
for them.
want,
Yeah.
and random recruits aren't going to Stanford to watch a game.
Right.
They might go to the Coliseum to watch USC and Notre Dame play, but they're not going to Stanford to watch a game. You know,
Yep.
they're not getting away from Silicon Valley. You know, it just that's not where Notre Dame is pulling from. They're just not.
So
that
Vince,
doesn't help me.
here is the next question. Now, this is a possible college football playoff scenario. And
All
I
right.
know you took some notes on this earlier that you that you left behind. So
I got
we'll
it. All
see,
up here.
like speaking of pop quizzes and all that kind of stuff. We'll see if you passed AP
All right.
college football playoff. So here's the possible scenario. You've got a currently 2-loss LSU team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. So that leaves each with 1 loss. And the loser of Ohio State and Michigan would have 1 loss as well, along with 1 loss Oregon potentially from the Pac-12, assuming they run the table like we were talking about earlier. And then you've got an unbeaten or 1 loss TCU team from the Big 12. So my question is, who's getting in if LSU beats Georgia under all those scenarios? Who's getting into the college football playoff at the end?
All right. So I have a counter question.
Okay.
I need to know if TCU is a 1-loss team or if they're unbeaten, because that makes a big difference to me.
Okay.
If they are, I'll give you both scenarios. If they are unbeaten,
Okay.
then obviously they're going to get in. Okay. So they're the Big 12 champion.
An unbeaten Power 5 is not getting left out of the play.
Correct. So whoever is the Big 10 champion is going to be undefeated. So whether that's Ohio State or whether that's Michigan.
Right. One of the two.
They're the number 1 seed. They're in.
Right.
Okay. In this scenario.
Okay. So now we've got, this is unbeaten TCU. So now we've got Ohio State and TCU.
So Ohio State's in. TCU's in at number 2. I'm putting Georgia at number 3 because they were 12-0 going into the championship. I'm assuming that LSU doesn't blow them out. I'm assuming it's a close game.
Okay.
Georgia's in at number 3. Okay. My hard time is the number 4 spot. Okay. Who gets it?
Right.
A 1-loss Pac-12 champion in Oregon or a 1-loss 11-1 Tennessee. Okay. Now,
so you're still leaving 2-loss LSU out, even if they run the table and win the SEC
their losses are too bad. They got blown out by Tennessee, and they got beat by an average Florida State team. They're out. They're out. Yep. You're not getting in.
But just to play counter to that now, they would have a win over Alabama and a win over Georgia.
They got 2 losses. They're out. I'm done. They're out.
Okay.
They're done.
Okay.
None of my teams.
Brian Kelly has nothing to do with this.
No, they don't. I'm just looking at a resume.
Okay.
They have 2 losses. I'm putting in 1-loss teams over 2-loss teams. And I don't care that they're the SEC champion. That means nothing to me at this
Obviously.
point. Because they have 2 losses. You have 2 losses, you're out. Okay. So my issue is Tennessee or Oregon. They both lost to Georgia.
Right.
Okay. They both have quality wins on their schedule, right? Tennessee has the Alabama win. They had another really good win that I can't remember off the top of my head. I had it in my notes. Okay. Then Oregon would have wins over USC, Utah, and UCLA. if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's kind of a toss-up. Maybe the tiebreaker is that Oregon got their doors blown off by Georgia and Tennessee lost by less. Maybe that's the tiebreaker. So maybe I put Tennessee in there, and you got two conference champions on the outside looking in.
See, and that's why I asked this question. It's going to be a real conundrum for that committee to decide, because you're going to have Oregon as a Power 5 champion and a Tennessee team that didn't even make the SEC championship game, and we're assuming they win out the rest of the way. But as you said, they've got a lopsided win over LSU, a loss to Georgia, but also a win over Alabama. So like Tennessee and LSU have fairly similar resumes, except Tennessee, of course, has the head-to-head over LSU, and LSU has the loss to Florida State. That's what hurts them the most, right?
And that's what bumps Tennessee over LSU. And then conference champion. See, that there's the other thing. How do they rate being a conference champion? Because maybe that's the tick that puts Oregon in over Tennessee.
Right. That's like the extra data point is the conference championship. So then let's take TCU out. TCU's got at least a loss, so they're no longer undefeated. How does that change your top? Again, I don't disagree with the most part, but I think you're right. The biggest question is going to come down to, in the first scenario, Tennessee or Oregon, I think, sitting there with the one loss.
All right.
But
so
now,
what's your question?
So now TCU has one loss.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything else is the same, but TCU has one loss.
So if TCU has a loss, they're out. They're out. They're done. And that alleviates my problem, because now it's Ohio State, it's Georgia, it's Oregon, and it's Tennessee. Those are the four. So if TCU ends up losing, they're done. They're out of the top four.
Right. See, and here's what complicates things as well. Like Brent says, what actually hurts Oregon is they do have a head-to-head with Georgia where they got their doors blown off.
Yeah.
They lost 49-3 to Georgia. And in the meantime, again, in this scenario, you've got head-to-heads, obviously, with all these SEC teams, including the two-loss LSU team. I think LSU is going to get in with two losses. I think if they run the table the rest of the way, they beat Georgia, I think they're going to become the first two-loss team to get in.
Over who?
So let's go over Tennessee, probably. I think they'll keep Georgia in, and Tennessee would be the odd team out in that scenario.
So Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, and TCU would be in. Or is this the one-loss TCU scenario?
This is if TCU is undefeated. If TCU has a loss, that's where I think it even gets tougher because of the LSU entanglement in this whole thing. I think it's going to be Ohio State. It's going to be Georgia. It's going to be LSU. And you probably do get Oregon in that situation, because you're not going to have three SEC teams.
No,
but I do think that I think they'll put LSU in if they run the table, because, again, they would have a win over Alabama, the loss to Tennessee, but they would also have a more recent win over Georgia. I think they'll put LSU in with two losses.
So where is a one-loss conference champion Clemson fall into any of this?
I don't think they have a chance, because Notre Dame beating both Clemson and North Carolina handily, one of those on the road, those are probably going to be the two teams that play in the ACC championship game.
I agree.
I don't think Clemson has a shot in all this.
All right.
Because they need more three-loss team.
They need more chaos in order to be in the conversation. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
So that means, by the way, that Clemson would be in the Orange Bowl as the ACC representative.
Right.
And you would have an opportunity for Notre Dame to play against them again.
Right.
Just saying.
Tyler with a super chat. Do you love how the media and ESPN love Brian Kelly now after getting Bama in his first year at LSU?
They loved him when he left Notre Dame. How quick we forget about what a great move it was for Brian Kelly to leave Notre Dame and go to the SEC, because now you don't have the academic restrictions and he's going to go win a national championship and all these different things. They never didn't love him. Let's be real clear on that.
Right. They doubted it a little bit, the way they lost to Florida State to start the season, and it was just tenuous enough at times early on that it's like, oh, which way is this going to go? I'm amazed. You do have to give the guy credit because we were sitting here looking at that schedule
We're like
early on.
6-6 at
You
best.
could easily have seen a 6-6 season,
Yes.
and instead
And
they're in
Texas
college
A&M
football
has
playoff
disappointed
contention.
us. Arkansas has disappointed us. I mean, Florida has disappointed us. Like
Yep.
all these teams that I need, Alabama has disappointed me. Like all these teams I needed to humble Brian Kelly have just not shown up this year, and it's extremely disappointing.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Extremely.
And I'm trying to think.
I still
who
got
they
my
even
money on
playing this week,
Arkansas
do you
this
know?
week. Arkansas. They
Is it
play
Arkansas?
Come on, Hogs. Come on.
Call the Hogs, baby.
It would
Call the
be-
Hogs.
Tell me it would not be typical Brian Kelly to beat Alabama and then the next week then lose to like a 500 Arkansas team.
I know.
That would be great.
Fill in the blank, Vince. Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay is blank.
Bat-esque crazy. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. That man is unbelievable when it comes to making moves. He's nuts. He's absolutely bonkers. He's certifiable. How about that? Certifiable.
He is only 63 years old. Like I look at him,
like he's 97.
I thought he was a lot older than 63. And he's got that red face. His face, his head looks like it's going to explode. And he is just, he is just this classic now son of a rich guy who became the rich guy.
Yeah.
With all of his crazy eccentric hobbies and all this different stuff and all his, collecting his guitars and everything and his snakeskin boots and whatever else. And he's just become, like he's already got one Super Bowl for one thing.
Somehow.
But he's definitely he's grab bagging now is what he is doing. Like making this Jeff Saturday move. And like everyone's got good things to say about Jeff Saturday.
He's a good guy. He's great.
He comes across as a great guy. But it's just amazing. Like when you look at, and they were talking about him on NFL Network the other day, when you look at the guys on that Colts staff, like they've all got like 20 plus years of experience. And instead of, typically what happens if you fire the head coach, you make someone from within the interim because he's there. He's familiar with guys. You're halfway through the season. You make them the interim coach. You don't go outside the organization to get a guy who hasn't even coached outside of high school football.
Right.
Who's whether he's one of the greats from your team or not, it's just amazing that they, that he went this route. And I just can't imagine like being in that situation, like if you're either Jeff Saturday or the guys on that staff. And it just shows how bonkers Jim Irsay is to make a move like this and think that he's the completely sane one,
I know, right? And Jeff Saturday was like, I don't know why he called me, but hey, let's go. Like it was hilarious to hear some of his comments about the whole thing.
Yeah. So we were just talking about, we'll go back to the college football playoff talk. Nick says he's got a super chat. If Michigan and Ohio State game is close, you don't see both in.
Not even.
I could see it if Ohio State loses, maybe. But again, I think you've got a better chance of getting two SEC than two Big Ten. But if Ohio State wins and it's Michigan that loses, their strength of schedule just is not good enough to get them in.
Nailed it.
Again, maybe Ohio State, but even then, their strength of schedule. But again, like that's where having Notre Dame in the top 25 bolsters their argument and all that kind of stuff.
Michigan's strength of schedule right now is 73rd in the country. Ohio State is 53rd. Those are not the numbers of teams that are going to get into the college football playoff with a loss. I'm sorry. This is very similar to me where with like the Big 12. As soon as you get a loss in the Big 12, you're out, right?
Right.
You got to be undefeated to get in, period.
Right. Yeah.
And if Ohio, let's say Ohio State wins and then they go, or let's say Michigan wins and then they go to the championship and they lose. So now you got both teams with one loss. I think they're both out. I don't think there's a Big Ten representative.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, I agree. Brent Smith says when Jim Irsay goes to Pebble Beach, he tips the staff $50,000 per stay.
Dang.
Yes, $50K. That is amazing. Well, I mean, at least he's a nice tipper. He's a good guy. I waited on
that's great.
a Kansas football coach once when I worked at a bar when I was in school, Glenn Mason at the time, who I think is he still with the Big Ten Network now? He was at Minnesota for a while, but He was cheap. He was cheap. His whole family came in. Basically, they gave me his table because I was supposed to be, like the guy who could,
Work it.
handle, that table and all that kind of stuff. And, I got like maybe a $5 tip, with like 10 people sitting at the table.
There's a current Notre Dame head coach that's not a very good tipper. I'll say that.
Current Notre Dame head coach?
Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of sports at Notre Dame, so I'm not going to get any more.
Specific. So different sport, but gotcha.
Yeah, there's a bunch of coaches. I'm not saying the football coach. I'm saying a bunch of coaches.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you specified that, but you're going to have to tell me who it is after the show.
I will.
All right, last question tonight. Parade magazine, which has been a fixture in American newspapers since 1941, will no longer show up in your Sunday newspaper after this Sunday. It's going to be the last time Parade is published. You can still find it online. Have you now, or have you ever been a Parade magazine reader, Vince?
I have read Parade magazine, actually. I believe every year they're the ones that put out like what people make, like the money that they make and stuff like that, right?
Right.
I've read that article many, many times.
Yeah.
So I have read Parade magazine.
We're both gluttons. We like to read how much, how much more people make than us.
How much we're not making. That's exactly right.
That's right. That's like, I remember when I was a kid, when I would like stay at my grandparents on the weekend where we lived, we didn't get the Parade, but like their newspaper did get the Parade, so you would see it. And you remember like the Parade All-Americans, they used to do the Parade All-American basketball team. Yeah. And I think that's where I got started because, like when I was a kid, I basically read the comics. I read the sports section. Yep. And then when I went to my grandparents, I would get the Parade magazine, and that's where I saw it, like before the internet and Twitter, when all these different, like celebrity things were out there, it's like they would have the questions, like who's doing what show, like what's coming up next for MASH, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Cheers. And you would get, like the little things in there. So yeah, I always have over the years. It's like a nice little, kind of surprise, that you got, but it's not going to be in the paper anymore.
That's disappointing, but it's a sign of the times. I mean,
it is, it is. Yeah, Michael says he was a Washington Post paper boy in the 80s. So I wasn't Washington Post. I was Manhattan Mercury in Manhattan, Kansas paper boy for a while.
Nice. We get a copy of the South End Tribune every day.
Do you?
Yeah, we do.
We switched to weekends, and it's,
I don't read it, but
there's
we
just
have
so much less. I know. It's just like,
and the problem is, once the news is in the newspaper, it's old news.
Right.
That's part of the problem.
And
it used to be a staple for me. I'm going to go off on a tangent, and I apologize, but when I was coaching high school football, it was a staple on Saturday morning before I would go meet with the other coaches to go through the scores and go through all the stories about all the high school games that went on. Now those aren't even out till Sunday.
I know,
because of the way that the deadlines and all those things work.
Yeah, because like their deadlines have become earlier because they've outsourced it out of town to where they print it, so they've got to have earlier deadlines to get it in. But you're absolutely right. Like the high school stuff on Friday night doesn't come out till Sunday. Brutal. And your Notre Dame stuff on Saturday, even if it's an early game, I don't even think you see it until Monday.
No. So that's brutal. And that's what I used to love to do. You read the high school stuff Saturday morning, you read the Notre Dame stuff on Sunday.
Yep.
Now it's old news. It's just, there's nothing that you can tell me that don't already know. And that's part of the problem with newspapers the way they are now and the way things are.
It's sad.
Because I love reading the newspaper. Yeah.
Like paper, like you read the paper and you got the ink on your fingers and all that kind of stuff. And one of those things that's slowly dying.
I know.
Like everything else.
Sounded like an old man on that one. Like everything
back in my day. All right. Well, that's going to do it. I won't be here tomorrow. Vince won't either. I believe Brian and Jesse will have you tomorrow night. I think Jesse's bringing the whiteboard back to do a little Navy diagramming. They're going to get into some keys to the triple option tomorrow night.
Jesse played in the triple option.
He did. I was telling Brian, when Jesse played against the triple option, those were like his money games in terms of tackles. He would come out of those with like 18, 20 tackles a game in those 3 years that he played against that.
He was born to be a middle linebacker, that boy. I'll tell you what.
That's right.
Loved it.
That's right. Yep, as Chi-Town said, Professor Jesse Stiers.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, great stuff as always. Good to have everybody with us. Great questions tonight. And yes, tomorrow night is whiteboard time. Vince, I will talk to you later. I'll be in St. Louis this weekend. So the plan is I'll be joining you from St. Louis Saturday morning for Countdown. So
beautiful. Yes. And it's early morning, at same time for us, 10 to noon, but we'll be more like 10 to 11:30 because of the game happening at noon. So yeah.
That's right. All right. We will talk to you later then. IB Nation Sports Talk.